Since 2014, Alexander Downer has been the Australian government's man in London. He's also well known as a long-serving foreign minister. Well, last year, the New York Times reported he played a role in triggering an FBI investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 US election campaign after a Trump campaign staffer allegedly told him the Russians had emails hacked from the Democratic Party. In his final days as High Commissioner, Alexander Downer joined me earlier from London. Mr. Downer, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
I want to start by asking you, did you meet with George Papadopoulos in the Kensington Wine Bar in May of 2016? And if so, what did he say to you?
Well, let me be blunt about this. Of course, it's been widely reported that I did. But I don't think talking about it is going to help our relationship with the United States or make any contribution that will advance Australia's interests. After all, this whole question of Russia and any relationship that Russians may have had at any stage with the Trump campaign team is a toxic issue in American politics. And I don't think any of us really want to be dragged into that any more than we can help.
You say you don't want to talk about it, so it sounds like it did occur. And as you say, it's been widely reported. Here's what we think we know about it. It's information independently verified by the New York Times and by the Sydney Morning Herald. And that is that Mr. Papadopoulos told you that he'd become aware that Russia had a dirt file on Hillary Clinton based on hacked Democratic Party emails. Is that what he told you, very simply?
Well, as I said, I'm not going to go into granular detail like that. I'm really not, because this issue plays into American politics in a really major way, and I have no enthusiasm to play into American politics in the first place. And in the second place, I don't think it's in Australia's interest that we do play into American politics more than is necessary for our country.
All right. Well, can I ask you this very simply? Have you been interviewed or questioned or expect to be interviewed or questioned by the FBI or the Mueller investigation?
I mean, it's exactly the sort of question that I definitely wouldn't answer.
Let's turn to the person of Donald Trump. You've said he shouldn't be judged by his tweets. Why shouldn't we judge the US president on his words?
Well, I think in the end, to be wise here, it's best to judge people on their actions, not just on their words. And of course, people draw conclusions about the tweets, and I think many people are very offended by his extensive, or have been, by his extensive use of Twitter. But I think it's important to judge Donald Trump by his actions as the President of the United States. So there will be people who will speak positively of the tax cuts that he's introduced, particularly the corporate tax cuts in the United States, the tough approach he's taken to North Korea, the somewhat more robust approach he's taken to Syria and the use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime. These things would be seen by many people as positives for Donald Trump.
You're a well-known monarchist. What do you think of the prospects of Australia becoming a republic in your lifetime?
Look, who knows? But I don't think this is a front-of-the-mind issue for most Australians. Obviously, for a minority of people, they're very passionate about it, but for most Australians, I don't think this is a front-of-the-mind issue. I think in the end, the difficulty is always going to be, as is the case in Canada and New Zealand, that we have constitutional arrangements at the moment which work pretty well for us, and we're not, how much time are we going to invest in changing those constitutional arrangements, getting rid, in effect, of the Governor-General, who's seen to be way above politics, and replacing the Governor-General with a politician, with a Liberal or Labor, presumably Liberal or Labor president. And how will that change Australia? And, people just think, well, Sir Peter Cosgrove does a fantastic job as the Governor-General.
We've even got Kim Beazley, the Governor of Western Australia, you might have noticed recently. What was your reaction to that?
Well, I think it's an excellent appointment. Kim Beazley's a very distinguished Australian. He's as you know, being the ambassador in Washington, a cabinet minister, has enormous experience. It'll be a great help to Western Australia. But it's the point, isn't it, going into that position, because of the nature of the monarchy and the neutrality of the monarchy, going into that position as the Governor of Western Australia, he's not going to be seen as somebody who'll use that job to advance the interests of the Labor Party. He will do the job in a completely neutral way. He's mature enough and sophisticated enough to know that.
You can't have switched off, I'm sure, from Australian politics in your 4 years in London. Is Tony Abbott destabilising the party?
Well, I think, you're absolutely right. I certainly follow Australian politics pretty closely.
Right.
From London, though, so I make that qualification. You can never follow it quite so closely as if you're in your own country. But look, I think the important thing for the Liberal Party, including for Tony Abbott, for all of them, is to concentrate on policy, not personalities. I think when you look at Australia from the UK, and you look at Australia in a kind of global context, it's a country that's doing extraordinarily well. There's a wonderful quality of life that people have in Australia. The country stands proud in the world, has a huge amount to be proud of.
And yet, despite all that,
so
we have such instability, don't we? We have such instability at a federal level. Does it frustrate you to watch Tony Abbott? To watch Barnaby Joyce, to watch the others on the sidelines.
But on the other hand, to be honest with you, over many years, in fact, I could say ever since I can remember, which is quite a few years, there have been these sorts of debates within political parties. There are personality conflicts. There are, factional tensions or whatever it may be. I mean, a political party is in itself a coalition of interests. It would be a strange political party if everybody always agreed with each other, or everybody always agreed with the leader. You're always going to have a degree of dynamic, of dispute within a political party.
Mr. Downer, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.